I am a debtor and a farmer. My friend told me that he would take me to Shanghai for a visit, with food and accommodation included. He also said that he would give me 200,000 to 300,000 yuan when he came back. Was it too good to be true? I went without thinking. After I went there, they bought me a car, a house, and a company. I thought I had reached the pinnacle of my life, but after a short time, he said, "Give me 20 to 30,000, and we'll let you go home." As a result, a year and a half later, someone called me and said that my credit card was overdue and my loan was overdue. I didn't know what happened. When the police station also called me and said that I was suspected of financial fraud, now what can I do?
In China, a mysterious group has emerged known as professional debtors. They may have originally been impoverished farmers from remote villages, city drifters, or even severely ill patients. However, they end up shouldering high debts that were not originally theirs, becoming discredited individuals, commonly known as laolai or deadbeats.
Recently, I heard from a loan customer that their friend in Chang'an District, Poly Garden, Shijiazhuang, transferred a house to a debtor to improve the debtor's qualifications. Then, the debtor would take carefully prepared materials to several banks to apply for credit loans simultaneously. After some time, they would simply default and not repay the money, shifting all the risk to the banks.
A warning has been issued by netizens that banks in Shijiazhuang are in danger, as professional debtors could cause them to go bankrupt. The logic behind this operation, as explained by netizens, is that while banks aim to earn interest from borrowers, the borrowers are actually after the bank's principal. Typically, intermediaries in debt transactions seek individuals with low education but clean credit records as proxies. These individuals are often from rural areas. Intermediaries fraudulently change the borrower's work information and credit data to meet the bank loan application standards, making the loan application process smoother. After the loan is completed, after 6 months of normal repayment, they quickly sell the house, at which point the bank cannot seize the house. All debt is left with the debtor, and the bank cannot recover a single penny. Some intermediaries transfer houses, cars, and companies to the debtor, using their qualifications to apply for millions of loans from several banks in Shijiazhuang. They then give the debtor some benefits, disappear, and the banks are emptied overnight. Netizens say that most of these debtors are ordinary people who struggle in life, so being labeled a deadbeat or being blacklisted doesn't matter to them. In China, individuals who fail to repay debts or have poor credit are called deadbeats. Currently, there are over 8.3 million deadbeats in China. Within this huge group, some choose to take on others' debts voluntarily, becoming so-called professional debtors, while others are tricked into it. This group collaborates with bank insiders and major debtors, forming a black market. They exploit loopholes in China's banking credit system to fraudulently obtain large loans, causing serious losses to banks and ultimately letting national taxpayers foot the bill. After the pandemic, life for ordinary people has become even more difficult, prompting the emergence of this profession of debtors. People who choose to be professional debtors can enjoy free food, clothing, housing, and transportation, and even get free cars and houses. Within 6 months, they can earn millions of cash, but the price is a lifelong commitment to owing millions or even tens of millions of mortgage debts and being blacklisted by banks. On platforms such as Douyin and Xiaohongshu, there are many advertisements specifically recruiting professional debtors who use jargon like 300 in hand, can do without a household registration, and a large number of villagers at hand, which are their common terms. This has already become a profession in mainland China. Intermediaries recruit people who are inclined to become debtors, such as gamblers, individuals who have adopted the lying flat lifestyle, and even those with terminal illnesses. These individuals are usually not afraid of creditors chasing after them. If they want to become professional debtors, intermediaries collect their personal information, forge documents, and help them apply for various loans. How exactly does it work? This is the autobiography of a debtor.
I am a debtor, and recently I earned my first 1 million through debt. Last April, I was laid off, and because of unemployment, I approached many loan intermediaries but couldn't get a loan. Through one intermediary's introduction, I met someone involved in mortgage debt, who told me he could give me 1 million for free, on the condition that I would stay in the dark from then on. At that time, I thought that with this sum of money, I could return to my hometown, open a shop, or find a job, and possibly live a peaceful life. So without much thought, I signed a contract with them. They took away my bank card and ID card, started depositing money into my bank account, paid the Social Security and Housing Provident for me, and transferred a business license to me. 3 months later, they transferred the house under my name. The house was purchased with a down payment, and the extra money was used to help me get a loan to buy a car. However, as soon as the car was purchased, they pawned it. So in the bank's system, I became a company boss with a car, a house, and financial transactions. This process continued for about 5 to 6 months. Most of my days were spent shuttling between the loan company and the bank. When all the procedures were completed, the total loan amount was around 5 million. They told me that 2 million was their upfront cost, 1 million was various fees, and the remaining 2 million would be split between us. After that, I left for my hometown with them, and the real nightmare began. My bank card was frozen, court summons arrived at my home, my friends received reminders from me one after another, and my parents fell ill from worry and fear. The bank sued me for fraud, and there were endless court sessions ahead, along with being summoned to the police station for investigation. Although they had told me how to deal with it, I still felt particularly panicked, having nightmares at night, dreaming of being locked up in prison. This year, I met a girl I love, and our relationship was good. I felt we could be lifelong partners. However, when we checked my credit card before marriage, she found out that I owed so much money and had so many lawsuits. After much consideration for our future, she chose to separate. My hair turned white almost overnight. Perhaps someone like me should spend the rest of their life alone or in prison.
According to insider sources, banks are well aware of the phenomenon of professional debtors and are fully aware that the assessed values of some houses is significantly higher than the market price. However, as long as the relationships and funds are in place, everything can be maneuvered. Regarding the process of inflating the assessed value, an intermediary who specializes in loan-related businesses revealed that since bank employees have quotas, some are willing to do it, although the process can be troublesome. It is important to note that the system of professional debtors is essentially a form of fraud, involving the crime of obtaining loans through deception. Although the criminal law of the People's Republic of China provides clear penalties for this, in general, such cases involving bank employees are not prosecuted. The hundreds of millions in bad debts are ultimately filled by the state, but the Chinese Communist Party will use various means to strip the bank of its bad debts, ultimately putting them on the backs of taxpayers. The professional debtor industry is an open secret in the Chinese banking circle, much like the disappearance of deposits from Henan rural banks. Once a problem arises, the Communist Party and the banks will shift blame to temporary workers or blame depositors for improper financial management. Professional debtors mainly appear in the fields of corporate loans, mortgage loans, and car loans. In terms of corporate loans, intermediaries will register a brand new shell company, with the professional debtor becoming the legal person of the company. However, due to the huge capital scale, high risks, and possible criminal liabilities, there are not many practitioners at present. The profit margin in car loans is small, and practitioners are also rare. Therefore, the main activity area of professional debtors is concentrated in the field of mortgage loans. For professional debtors, the opportunity to easily profit tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands is probably a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Compared to abstract personal credit records, cash is obviously more attractive. However, in this chain, debtors are at the bottom, and whether they receive compensation depends entirely on the intermediary's integrity. Whether it is a mortgage loan or a corporate loan, the money borrowed may not be entirely given to the debtor. Some intermediaries may also abscond with the funds. Even if the debtor chooses to report it to the police, they may be considered accomplices and still need to repay it themselves. Even if they get the money, the days of professional debtors are not easy. After being blacklisted by the bank, they will not be able to take high-speed trains, airplanes, or purchase restricted goods, and will have to bear huge mortgage debts for life. Moreover, once becoming a professional debtor, it is almost impossible to escape. Only a few resourceful individuals can settle their relationship with the public security system and civil affairs department through bribery, cancel household registration by faking their own death, then reapply for a legal household registration, change their name, and start a new life. Furthermore, since the opportunity to earn money quickly can solve urgent family needs, many professional debtors will deposit the money earned into their family's accounts, keeping no deposits in their own accounts to avoid assets being frozen. In order to not affect their children's future, some people even choose to divorce. At the same time, professional debtors also face the risk of being sentenced to prison. For example, in a previous case in Quanzhou, intermediaries and dozens of professional debtors were jointly involved in defrauding loans amounting to over 30 million yuan, and the intermediaries were sentenced to 16 years in prison and a fine of 500,000 yuan under the name of so-called white households. The dozens of debtors were sentenced to 1 to 5 years in prison as accomplices. Meanwhile, bank credit personnel involved in the operation were also sentenced to 1 year in prison. Why has this kind of profession suddenly appeared in China in recent years? Over the past 3 years, China suffered from the pandemic, and the communist authorities have taken an extremely leftist policy turn, intensifying their crackdown on the real estate industry and private enterprises. This directly led to a sharp decline in the Chinese economy, with the youth unemployment rate reaching a staggering 46.5%. Civil servants' salaries have decreased, and the middle class faces the risk of poverty, and residents' income has sharply decreased. According to a research report by the Employment, Income Distribution and Consumption Department of the National Development and Reform Commission and the China Institute of Income Distribution at Beijing Normal University in December 2023, about 547 million people in China, accounting for 39.1% of the population, earn less than 1,000 yuan per month. At the same time, approximately 52.5 million people earn between 1,000 and 1,090 yuan per month. Overall, the number of people earning less than 1,090 yuan per month has reached 600 million, accounting for 42.9% of the national population. With as many as 964 million people in China earning less than 2,000 yuan per month, once their families encounter challenges, these people simply cannot cope because they have no emergency savings. This provides opportunities for illicit intermediaries and insiders in banks to exploit loopholes and take advantage of the desperate poor. These two groups engage in fraud together and form a black industry. It is said that villagers in some remote areas of China have become professional debtors, and the entire village has even become synonymous with professional debtors. It is worth noting that on April 16th, at a press conference of the State Council Information Office, Deputy Director of the National Bureau of Statistics, Shen Laiyun, spoke about the economic situation in the first quarter of 2024. It was claimed that after preliminary calculations, the GDP for the first quarter was 296 trillion yuan, an increase of 5.3% year-on-year at constant prices, and an increase of 1.6% quarter-on-quarter from the fourth quarter of the previous year. International media are discussing whether the Chinese economy has already passed the worst period, but many Chinese people say they do not feel the economy is improving. Some netizens said that their salaries have not increased, and even friends with higher education have been laid off. They suspect that the dividends of this economic growth has all gone into the pockets of high-ranking officials. Many people also reflected that everyone is cutting back on expenses. Girls are starting to buy samples of cosmetics, and many young people are choosing to eat at community canteens. These places were previously thought to be frequented only by the elderly, but due to their low prices, they have now become popular. This is a community canteen in Zhengzhou, where meals start at 10 yuan, and rice, soup, and steamed buns come free with purchase. Community canteens Chengdu charge 28 yuan per person for all you can eat, and are also very popular among migrant workers and young people. The main reason why people are cutting back on expenses is that many people have high loans to repay, especially monthly mortgage and car loans, which must be paid in full to avoid falling into debt. More and more people are worried that they will suddenly become unemployed one day, making it impossible to repay their debts. In China, personal credit is closely tied to financial behavior. Debtors often have very low credit scores, which limits their rights, similar to professional debtors mentioned earlier. Ms. Qin, who lives in Foshan, had saved a small amount of money during China's real estate boom, later invested in a friend's company and helped with store expenses. However, after the outbreak of the pandemic, the company closed down, leaving her with a large amount of debt. In China, individuals cannot apply for bankruptcy, so she had to look for a new job to slowly repay her debts. However, due to her poor credit, she was unable to purchase high-speed rail and airplane tickets, and her new job required frequent business trips. In the end, she could only accept a low-paying job working in an herbal medicine store, with a basic salary of less than 3,000 yuan. She still carries a debt of 1.3 million yuan, making the road to repayment long and difficult. Externally, the increase in personal debt may also affect the economy, as many people are trying to repay their debts rather than increase consumption or investment, which may further drag down economic recovery. According to the China Financial Stability Report 2023, released by the People's Bank of China, the leverage ratio of the Chinese household sector was 71.8% at the end of 2022 and 63.7% in the first half of 2023, exceeding the global average of 61.9%. The household debt-to-income ratio reached 148.6%, exceeding the global average of 101.5% by nearly 50%, and higher than the average of developed countries of 114.4% by more than 30%. According to data from the National Institute of Finance and Development Research in Beijing, the ratio of household debt to GDP in China has almost doubled in the past 10 years. This is mainly because in the past few years, the Chinese Communist Party's promotion of the land economy has led to a large number of residents borrowing to buy property. However, with the economic downturn, the real estate market has stagnated, and a large number of people have become unemployed, leading to a sharp increase in the number of people unable to repay their mortgages. Wang Dan, chief economist of HSBC China, pointed out that the sharp increase in the number of defaulters is not only a cyclical problem but also a structural problem. To stimulate the real estate market, the Chinese Communist Party has continuously issued various loosening policies, but the effect has been minimal. The sluggish real estate market has led to an increase in non-performing loan ratio of banks in the real estate industry. In 2023, the non-performing loan ratio of personal housing loans of the 6 major state-owned banks all increased. At the 2023 China Non-Performing Asset Spring Forum, Jiang Tao, president of Shanghai Winsun Asset Management Company Limited, said that there are currently about 1 trillion yuan of non-performing assets remaining in the financial system, and by 2025 there will be about 2 trillion yuan of non-performing assets, accounting for 10% of the bank loan balance. Caixin reported that China's non-performing personal loan assets have reached trillions. Gongsheng Li, a researcher at the China Financial Think Tank, also pointed out that China is facing the most difficult economic period. Currently, China's total debt is close to 3 times its GDP. In 2024, the debts of the central and local governments are both major problems. According to an estimate by Goldman Sachs in April 2023, the total debt of the government, local government financing platforms, and national policy banks has reached 156 trillion yuan. The latest report released by the National Institute of Finance and Development Research shows that as of 2023, China's total debt to GDP ratio has reached 287.8%, an increase of 13.5 percentage points from 2022, setting a new historical record. Gongsheng Li pointed out, in addition to debt problems, there are also black holes in areas such as capital, banks, and finance, as well as problems in the real estate market. If these problems are not exposed, we will not be able to see them clearly. Taiwanese economist Wu Jialong said, if sources of funding can be found, the debt is no longer a problem. However, Wall Street has begun to withdraw, and it is estimated that the Chinese Communist Party may be unable to provide sufficient funds. The central financial crisis is very serious now, with a huge fiscal deficit. Multiple crises are erupting simultaneously, almost requiring simultaneous solutions. This is undoubtedly a huge governance challenge for the Chinese Communist Party.